Listen carefully, because what you're about to hear completely destroys the comforting story you've been told about time. You already feel it even if you've never been able to explain it. When you were a child, time didn't just pass, it stretched. A single summer felt endless, like it contained an entire lifetime of moments. But now, as you move through your 40s, 50s, or beyond, entire years seem to vanish without warning, as if someone is quietly fast-forwarding your life. Most people will tell you this is just psychology. They'll say you've fallen into routine, that your memory is weaker, that you simply stop noticing life as it happens. A convenient explanation, a simple one, but also a deeply incomplete one. Because this isn't just about memory, it's about physics. The clock of the universe is not confused. A second is still a second, defined by precise and unchanging atomic processes. Nothing in the external world is speeding up. The Earth still rotates at the same rate. Light still travels at the same speed. Time, in its physical form, is not accelerating. So, if nothing outside you has changed, the only remaining variable is you. You are not a clock. You are a biological observer embedded inside a physical system. And your experience of time is not something you receive directly from the universe. It is something your brain constructs, moment by moment, through raw information processing. What you call time is actually the output of a biological machine interpreting reality. And that machine is not constant. When you are young, your brain is overwhelmed by novelty. Everything is new. Every sound, every color, every sensation demands full processing power. Your nervous system is forced into a high-resolution mode, encoding massive amounts of information every second. This creates something important: density. More experiences per unit of physical time means your brain stores more frames of memory for each passing second. And when you look back, those dense clusters of memory make time feel expansive, almost slow, as if life itself was longer. But as you age, something fundamental shifts. Your brain becomes more efficient, not in the way people usually think, but in a thermodynamic sense. It stops recording everything. It recognizes patterns. It compresses information. It begins predicting instead of fully observing. Why? Because energy is not free, and biological systems always tend toward efficiency. This means fewer new memories are formed for the same amount of physical time. Entire days become compressed. Routine experiences are no longer recorded in detail. Your commute, your workday, your repeated habits, these are processed and discarded with minimal encoding. And when you look back, there is less there. Fewer frames, less memory density, less subjective time. So your brain reaches a logical but misleading conclusion. Time must be accelerating. But it isn't. The universe has not changed its speed. What has changed is the resolution of your experience. You are no longer recording reality in high definition. You are running a compressed version of existence, low bandwidth, optimized for survival, not for detail. And that is where the illusion begins to feel real. Because subjective time is not measured by clocks. It is measured by how much change your brain can capture between 2 points in reality. When that capture rate drops, time appears to speed up. Not because the universe is moving faster, but because you are capturing less of it. And this is only the beginning of something even deeper, something that goes beyond memory, beyond psychology, and into the structure of physics itself. If you continue, you will see that this isn't just about how you remember time, but about what time actually is. And if you think what you've heard so far is disturbing, you haven't even touched the real structure of the problem yet. Because this feeling that time is accelerating isn't just about memory, compression, or habits. It connects to something far more physical, something that governs every neuron firing in your brain and every signal passing through your body. To understand it, you have to stop thinking of time as something you experience and start thinking of it as something you physically construct. Every moment you live is not continuous. It is built from fragments. Your eyes capture light, that light becomes electrical signals, and those signals travel through a biological network before your brain reconstructs a single unified now. But this process is slow, not in a noticeable way, but in a measurable physical way. In fact, by the time you consciously experience a moment, that moment has already passed. Your brain is always living slightly in the past. When you are young, this delay doesn't matter. Your brain is highly reactive, constantly overwhelmed by new input. It builds rich, detailed models of reality at maximum resolution. Every second contains enormous informational depth. But as you age, something subtle begins to change. Your brain becomes more selective. It stops processing everything and starts filtering aggressively. It recognizes patterns and ignores repetition. From a biological standpoint, this is efficient. From a thermodynamic standpoint, it saves energy. But from the perspective of subjective time, it changes everything. Because now, fewer frames of reality are being stored per second. And when fewer frames are stored, time feels like it is moving faster. Not because it is accelerating, but because you are recording less of it. Now we go deeper. Because memory compression alone still doesn't fully explain what you feel as you age. There is another layer underneath it, a layer tied to how your entire life is structured mathematically in your mind. Think about your earliest years. When you are 5 years old, one single year represents a massive portion of your entire existence. It is not just another year, it is a huge fraction of everything you've ever lived. That means every new experience carries enormous weight. Your first school year, your first friendships, your first memories, all of them occupy a large percentage of your total life story. But now compare that to adulthood. At 50, 1 year is only a tiny fraction of your life. It barely changes the overall structure of your experience. It becomes statistically smaller in your personal timeline. And this changes perception dramatically. Because your brain doesn't measure time in absolute units, it measures time in relative experience. A year is not a year, it is a proportion of your life. And as that proportion shrinks, so does its psychological impact. But there is something even more important happening beneath this mathematical shift. Your brain is not just storing memories, it is optimizing against repetition. Every repeated experience becomes cheaper to process. Driving the same route, seeing the same faces, performing the same routines, all of it gets compressed further and further. Your brain is constantly making a decision you are not aware of. Is this worth storing? And most of the time the answer becomes no. So entire days pass without meaningful encoding. And when you look back, your memory finds almost nothing to hold on to. So your mind reaches a conclusion that feels true but is actually misleading. Time is speeding up, but in reality your life is becoming less densely recorded. And this is where things become even more uncomfortable. Because now we have to talk about something almost nobody considers: energy. Your brain is not a passive observer. It is a physical machine that consumes massive amounts of energy just to function. And like all physical systems in the universe, it obeys one unavoidable rule: efficiency increases over time. This is not psychological, this is thermodynamics. Your brain reduces energy waste whenever possible. It strengthens efficient pathways, removes unnecessary connections, and stops processing redundant information in detail. This means that over time, your perception of reality becomes more compressed, not because you are losing awareness, but because your brain is actively optimizing against unnecessary detail. Now combine this with routine life. Most adults repeat similar patterns every day. Wake up, commute, work, eat, sleep. The structure barely changes. And because it barely changes, the brain treats it as low-value information. It stops recording it in high resolution. So instead of rich, detailed memory streams, you get compressed summaries. Not what happened minute by minute, but another normal day. And that compression is exactly what creates the illusion of time speeding up. Because subjective time depends entirely on recorded change. Less change equals less memory equals shorter perceived time. But there is still another layer. Something even deeper than memory, energy, and perception. Something connected to the physics of reality itself. Now we arrive at the most unsettling part of the entire structure. Because everything you've experienced so far assumes something very important. That time flows in a single universal way. But modern physics says otherwise. Time is not a universal river. It is part of a four-dimensional structure called space-time, where past, present, and future are all embedded together in a single mathematical framework. There is no moving now, traveling through the universe. There is only the structure of space-time and your consciousness moving through it. But here is the key point. Your consciousness does not access all of reality at once. It only samples a tiny slice of it at any given moment. Think of it like a scanning beam moving through a massive structure. You are not experiencing the full universe. You are experiencing one narrow frame at a time. And as your brain ages and becomes more energy efficient, that scanning process changes. It becomes less detailed, more fragmented, more compressed, which means your experience of moving through space-time becomes less continuous. You stop feeling like you are flowing smoothly through reality and start feeling like you are skipping through it, jumping between compressed moments instead of living every detail. That is the subjective experience of accelerated time. Not a change in the universe, but a breakdown in the resolution of your perception as you move through a fixed space-time structure. And once you see it this way, everything clicks into place. Time does not speed up. Your access to it degrades. Your brain becomes less capable of holding each moment long enough for it to feel real, dense, and extended. So the years don't move faster. You simply stop catching them in full detail. And now you are standing at the final edge of this idea where everything we've built so far collapses into a single, uncomfortable truth. Because if time is not actually accelerating, and if your memory, energy, and perception are all just filtering reality differently as you age, then what you are really experiencing is not a change in the universe. It is a change in your ability to hold on to it. But there is still one last layer, the deepest one. Modern physics describes the universe not as something that happens moment by moment, but as a complete structure, a four-dimensional space-time where every event, your childhood, your present moment, and even your death already exists as part of a fixed geometry. In this view, nothing is truly flowing. There is no cosmic river of time carrying everything forward. Instead, there is a complete map of existence, already fully laid out. And your consciousness? It doesn't move through it like a traveler walking forward in time. It moves like a limited scanner, illuminating one thin slice of that structure at a time. When you are young, that scanner is sharp. It captures high-resolution detail. It lingers on moments, absorbs novelty, and builds dense, rich layers of memory. That density gives your early life its strange feeling of expansion, as if everything lasted longer than it should. But as you age, something subtle but irreversible happens. That scanner begins to degrade, not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually, through energy limits, neural efficiency, and the unavoidable physics of biological systems. Your brain stops sampling every detail. It starts skipping, compressing, and merging information. Entire sequences of experience get reduced into single summaries. Days become one line, weeks become blur, months become background noise. And when you look back, your memory is not lying to you. It is simply incomplete. So your mind constructs the only conclusion it can. That time is moving faster now. But the truth is far more precise and far more unsettling. You are moving through the same space-time as always, but your ability to record it is breaking down. You are still inside the same universe, under the same laws, with the same unchanging flow of physics. Nothing outside you has sped up. Nothing has changed its rhythm. Only your internal resolution has changed. And this is where everything converges. Memory compression, energy efficiency, neural aging, thermodynamic limits, and space-time geometry are not separate explanations. They are different expressions of the same process. A biological system gradually losing its ability to fully sample reality. So the sensation of time accelerating is not an illusion in the trivial sense. It is a measurement error created by a collapsing observer. You are not witnessing time speed up. You are witnessing the gradual narrowing of the lens through which you experience existence itself. And as that lens narrows, the distance between moments feels shorter, not because reality is changing, but because less of reality is reaching you. So when you feel like life is passing too quickly, what you are really sensing is something much more fundamental. The universe is not slipping away from you. You are slipping away from the resolution of the universe. And once you understand that, there is no going back to the old explanation of time, because now you see it clearly. Time never accelerated. You just stopped capturing it in full. And if this breakdown of time changed the way you see your own life, subscribe and stay with El Universo en Lamas for more deep explorations into the physics of reality, consciousness, and the hidden structure of the universe.